So this is Steve, and I'm here with Jeff Krull, who is the director of the Allen County Public Library.
Right.
Jeff, we appreciate your time today, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about a project that you have coming up out on the library plaza.
Okay.
Tell me about what's going on.
Well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it too long, but I agreed to get in line to be president of the Downtown Rotary Club a couple of years ago. Currently, I'm president. But as I was entering into my term, and you become the vice president and the president-elect and then the president, one of the things looming for our club was our centennial. The club was founded in 1915, so 2015 is our centennial year. And one of my jobs as the incoming president was to chair this centennial committee, try to figure out how are we going to commemorate that. And we have about 135 members of the club, and we wanted to make sure everybody had their opinion expressed, so we did a lot of input work, and we got ideas from all the members. And we boiled it down to a couple of themes. We determined through consensus that we wanted something that was both local and international, both permanent, some kind of permanent bricks and mortar commemoration, and something that had to do with service. So after we worked through this, we came up with our Centennial project, which involves the centerpiece, which is the Rotary Centennial Tower. That's the bricks and mortar piece, the permanent thing, and that's what we are going to put on the library plaza. I was a little bit in an awkward situation, if you will, being involved with that and being the director of the library. It wasn't really my idea, and I keep saying that to everybody. It wasn't my idea that it should be here, but that became the preferred location of our committee as we looked at at least a half a dozen sites around downtown. And ultimately, it kept coming back to the library plaza because there's a lot of pedestrian traffic out there. It's very visible. We'd like to think it's one of the principal gathering places in downtown Fort Wayne for people to come and learn things, and there's some educational elements to this. So that's how we decided on the library plaza. Other components have to do with local service, and we're doing a little free library project, installing, we hope, 100 little free libraries, which are look like almost birdhouses, but they have books in them and they're free. You can take one and bring one back on the honor system, and those will go around different neighborhoods and on the walking paths and so forth. And then on the international side, we are sponsoring the construction of a middle school in Togo, West Africa, which is a very poor country. One of our members was involved in a trip to Africa some years ago, and this emerged as our international piece. So we got these three pieces, but the plaza part is going to be, I think, a very beautiful, what I think will become a landmark in Fort Wayne, and so that will happen in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about, I know it's going to be, like we talked about, a clock tower. Give me an idea of what that will look like.
I can give you a picture of it before you leave, if you can use that.
Sure.
But I can describe it. It will be 22 feet tall. It's going to be designed and fabricated by a company in Cincinnati that has been in business since 1843. They have built towers like this and clocks and carillons all over the world. It's a remarkable company. Our design will have basically 4 large, tall legs. It will have 4 clock faces. The Rotary logo will be discreetly installed on those clock faces. And it will also have what's known as an electronic carillon. This will be bells, but not real bells. It'll be an electronic version of bells. And the thing that's really neat about this is it's like infinitely programmable. You can have any melody you like that can play. And we feel that we can put the national anthem of the U.S. and the national anthem of our sister city countries, and we can put fight songs on there. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. The other element of this that's really interesting, I think, is that there will be a place to plug in a keyboard, so that we could have a music student or an amateur musician or a professional musician come and give a concert, to play some tunes on our carillon. So we will also recognize the donors, and we'll have a plaque that explains what this is, why the Rotary Club is doing it, a little bit of history of the club, and so forth. So again, I just think it's going to be a real addition to the city, particularly to the downtown, which is something that the library, of course, is deeply committed to. And that's why I'm very excited that our committee and the library board agreed that this would be the place for it.
Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the downtown area that the main library branch is
Okay.
in, which is where we're at.
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about the project that you went through years ago to kind of renovate this building in particular. Went through some major changes, and you also went, your whole system
Right.
was done over with some updating. Talk to me a little bit about that project.
Well, we started planning that in the late 90s, and it grew out of a need to have more space in the main library and to upgrade and add some space to the branches. We ultimately added 127,000 square feet to this already large building. So we now have 367,000 square feet plus an underground parking garage, which is not included in that size count. And as I said, we either expanded, replaced, or renovated 11 of our 13 branches. The reason we thought the downtown location needed to be expanded, well, there were multiple reasons. As I said, just the needs for space. We have a very large traditional book collection in this place. I mean, larger than virtually any city of our size on a per capita basis. There's a long tradition of why that started and why we maintain it, but we have had a policy for many years of really keeping almost one copy of everything, except for the real light paperbacks and stuff. Many public libraries, because of size, space constraints, are more popular oriented. In other words, if a thing hasn't been checked out in X number of years, maybe it's going to have to be removed from the collection. We've had, I would call it the luxury, because of the wonderful support we've had in the community over the years, of developing a much more comprehensive collection. So we have things in our collection that might not get used often, but they're there, and we're very proud of that. The genealogy collection is a special collection, kind of in that tradition. There's no other public library, I'd say, in the world that is even close to this. That's a whole TV show of how that got started. I can't get into that, but we're very proud of that. So we needed more space for books, but it wasn't just books. We said, now are we building a book warehouse here? If that's all we're doing, why don't we just put up a warehouse someplace and we can store them out there, and then if somebody wants one, we can retrieve it for them. No, we didn't think we wanted a book warehouse at all. In fact, we consciously thought this through and concluded we're not in the book business. Books are a container. There are lots of other containers. We're also into videos and DVDs and databases and computer access. So what business are we in? And we said, we're in the learning business. We want to have a facility here in downtown that's all about learning. And after we got under construction, we got the financing approved. We had some naysayers, but we carried the day. We're very happy about that. Once we got under construction, I would bring people through here on tours of the building as it was going up. And I would often get the question, well, wow, this is already pretty big. Why do we, isn't everything on the internet? And I would say, well, think of it this way. We're walking through the mall for the mind here. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out on the internet, a lot of virtual things out there. And you can get to a lot of that from sitting at home in your underwear if you want. But people are people. People want to interact. And there are fewer and fewer places in our society or any society where people can do that freely, regardless of who they are, what their background is, what their beliefs are, what their income level is. Public library is that place, and we want it to remain that place. And we want to provide more reasons for people to come to the physical library, even though we give people lots of reasons not to come to the physical library. As I said, databases, e-books, downloadable audiobooks, all this kind of stuff. But there is still a real function, we think, for the physical library as the place where you learn stuff. You learn stuff from other people. You might learn something from going to an exhibit in our gallery, or attending a candidate night in our theater, or coming to a recital or a music program, or bringing your kids to the early learning center, or the book study tower where they can go up and curl up with a good book and read in a cozy little nook up there. So it's all about variety, but it always comes back to learning, and that's what the library is all about. Now, we said at the time that we thought this project, the library expansion, would be a catalyst for further development downtown. There were many people who were very skeptical of that. I don't want to say I told you so, but maybe I will say I told you so. We think that really did have that effect. Now, we're not taking credit for the downtown revitalization that we're seeing all around us, but we do feel there was a part that the library played in that, in getting that momentum started, turning things around a little bit, convincing people that cities, if they're going to be really cities, they do need a center. They do need a downtown. It can't just be a bunch of sprawl with nothing in the middle. And I think as you see some of these demographic studies of how younger people are reacting and the things that they want to have a vibrant, active city center. So we think we're part of that. The convention center expansion that took place about the same time as our project obviously had a lot to do with that. The Harrison Square project, Parkview Field, huge. And I think there are people out there who didn't believe in any of it, who are now thinking maybe they were wrong. Some of them even admit it. But this isn't a time to gloat. This is a time to celebrate, I think, the fact that we are seeing a resurgence in interest in downtown, and just more things going on, just a higher interest level for our residents, our citizens. So if we were a part of that, we're very proud to have been part of it.
From what I remember, the construction and the design, actually, of this building, there was a lot of staff input. Talk to me about that process that you went through.
We wrote the building program statement for this building pretty much on our own meaning our staff. We had some experience in this process, and so it wasn't completely new. We've done some renovations in the early 90s on a limited basis. But we kind of knew the drill, I guess, on an expansion construction project. You have to describe what it is you want to create. You don't have to be the architect, that's what architects are for, but you have to be the people who think through the function of the building, what things should be happening there, what kind of space is going to be needed in terms of size for the different activities and functions that the building is going to accommodate. So we wrote a building program statement that was very detailed. It was a thick document. We said we want a cafe, we want a theater, we want a gallery, we want a special place for kids who little kids, pre-readers, so they can get introduced to the skills they need to learn how to read. We want a silent reading room. We want a celebratory space, that people will be impressed with and want to come to and be drawn to. So we put all this down there, and how many books are we going to have? We need this many square feet for books. We need this many square feet for videos. We need this many square feet for microfilm readers. That one proved to be, before we got under construction, microfilm use had really dropped. But anyway, we didn't call 100% perfect, but we hit it pretty darn close, I think. So we did that. That was a staff input thing. We hired a local architect, and then we worked with that local architect to interview national level firms that had done similar civic projects. And we wound up with a New York firm called Gwathmey Siegel, very impressive design firm. And they and our local architects worked together as a team. It was a great partnership. And we gave them that building program. We said, this is what we want. This is what you're starting with. 1968 precast concrete building that is looking a little long and looking a little stale. And we said, we're not going to tell you where everything goes, but this is what we want it to, how we want it to function. And we had many versions of ideas. How about this? How about that? How about this? So we had opportunities to react to that, to think what were the good features of this design, what were the good features of that one. Ultimately, we settled on this, what we've got, which was to totally gut the 1968 building and create, I think, a very striking great hall as the core, and everything kind of works off of that. So not only does it, I think, look great, but it gives us the opportunity to do things in this building that we never could do in the old building. Things like the Senior Information Fair, where we take that great hall and we turn it into Grand Central Station. We have booths set up and providers of services for seniors come in, and again, it's all about the learning theme. You come in, you learn stuff about services and residential opportunities and so forth. So it's along that theme. An event like that does get kind of noisy, and some people get a little irritated, but it only lasts for a day and a half, and it doesn't happen all the time. So it's another way to use the building to create a draw to the downtown area, to bring people here who maybe haven't been downtown in quite a while, and reintroduce them to what's all available down here. So the building project, the process was exhausting, but it was really exciting and a really fun thing to do. And it turned out, I think, really well. We have no regrets, really. I mean, as I said, we over-designed the microfilm reading room because we were deluged with microfilm users when we started the planning. By the time we got under construction, a lot of the stuff that was on the microfilms, the U.S. Census and all that kind of stuff, had been digitized and available elsewhere. But still, there are plenty of reasons for people still to come to the library, as I said before, and including the Genealogy Center, even though you can go to Ancestry.com, and the Family History Library in Salt Lake has tons of resources out there. There's still a lot of stuff here that's not digitized, but even for the digitized things, if you come to the library, we have licenses for all these databases that you would have to pay for yourself if you wanted to use it from home. So you can come in here and access all this stuff, you spend a couple days, decide what's useful to you, what isn't. Even probably more valuable than that can be the interaction with our staff. We really think of our genealogy librarians as kind of our faculty. And more we're doing that kind of one-on-one consultation. We schedule meetings with our staff for people who've maybe gathered a ton of information online, but they're a little bit overwhelmed by it. You know, they're not sure what they've got. You know, am I really related to, the King of England back in, maybe not. You got to make sure you got all this stuff properly documented. But those are the kinds of, again, human to human functions and services that people really value.
I think one of the things we should mention is a couple of years ago you added a pretty good collection to your collections that you had, the Lincoln collection. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, when the Lincoln Museum, which at one time was known as the Lewis A. Warren Lincoln Library and Museum, when the Lincoln Museum announced that they would be closing, the corporation, Lincoln Corporation, announced that they were no longer going to support that or make that available. At the same time, they set up a process for institutions to sort of make a pitch for them to take custody of that stuff, or to be given the collection. So there was a meeting in Philadelphia. We were invited to it. Brown University was there. The Smithsonian Institution was there. Gettysburg was there in Springfield, Illinois. Lincoln Library was there. And we heard all about the Lincoln Museum collection and all it involved. And then we were invited to submit proposals. Our proposal was a collaborative effort. We had Ian Rowland, former CEO of Lincoln National Corporation. We had Indiana University involved. We had the Indiana Governor's Office on our team. And essentially we put together a proposal that said, you should basically transfer that collection to the Allen County Public Library, or somehow keep it in the state of Indiana, preferably in Fort Wayne. We were ultimately successful at that. And the three-dimensional objects in that Lincoln Museum collection, paintings and so forth, are in the Indiana State Museum in Indianapolis. All of the two-dimensional items, 18,000 books, photographs, thousands and thousands of photographs owned by the Lincoln family, and oh my God, scores of filing cabinets full of miscellaneous information about Lincoln that was accumulated over the years since the Lincoln Library Museum was founded. All that stuff came here. And one of the key selling points that we were able to offer was that not only could we care for that material, those books and manuscripts and documents and photographs, take good care of it and preserve it, but we were uniquely positioned to digitize it. We have a digitization center here operated by an organization called the Internet Archive. They have 30 some of these centers around the world. Ours is one of the 5 largest. There's another whole story behind that, which I really can't get into. But we had that here, and we still have it. It's still operating. And we were able to say to the corporate folks, if you bring that collection here, we will digitize that stuff, and everybody in the world will have access to it. Not just the people who wander in and ask to see something. And we're in the process of doing that right now. That would probably make another nice story. We could take you down there sometime, show you how that works. But that material is being digitized, and it's being used by people all over the world every day. We have items that the staff estimate maybe were used half dozen times over the years when they were on the back shelf, that have been downloaded tens of thousands of times, just because it's available, it's discoverable, and it wasn't before. So that's another point of pride that we have managed to keep that in Fort Wayne and make it available to the world.
Let's go back to the downtown just a little bit.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about the part or the role that you see this building playing in downtown. You're kind of, I don't want to say maybe the thick of it, but you're kind of almost where downtown, now the central downtown is. With the announcement of the Ash Project, you're just down the street from Harrison Square, Parkview Field, Harrison. How do you picture your role in the next 10 years going forward with the downtown and development and keeping things going?
Well, I think that the basic draw of the main library will continue to be strong. As I said before, we are consciously thinking of ways to appeal to human traffic. We want to give people access to ebooks, absolutely, but we also want to provide opportunities for learning and reasons to come to the library. So by, I think, pursuing our own mission, we're going to contribute to the traffic downtown. There was a time when the use of the library on Sundays would start to drop off quite a bit toward summer. Still does a little bit, but it's it's not as pronounced as it was. We close on the main library on Sundays in the summer, and we've had people asking us, gee, maybe you ought to stay open. Now, that's a financial issue, of course, and we've had some budget problems, as all of the governmental units have over the last 5, 6, 7 years. But I think it does show that people view the library as a destination. It brings them down here. When they're here, when they come here, they discover a lot of other things that they may not have known were going on. You got the farmers market on Saturdays over here, certainly the ballpark. Restaurants are we're having, getting busier. Saturday night used to be deserted. My wife and I were out at a Follinger theater concert the other night, and we decided to come downtown. We went over to the landing, and the new Red Rock was just mobbed. The place across the street, Columbia Street West, it really looked like a city. And I thought, this is great. The library is not responsible for that, but I think there's a contributing factor there. And I just think we'll continue to be part of the mix. When you have an event like the Fright Night, we use the Library Plaza as the gathering place to start the zombie walk. So, hey, we have Saturday night concerts all summer long, Rock the Plaza. That plays in beautifully with Parkview Field, because sometimes that game will end and we're still going over here, and people come wandering over and they'll stop here. So, and visually, I think you mentioned, it's kind of like a corridor here from Harrison. What used to be Webster Street out here, but you can see Parkview as you get out of there and you walk down to the Library Plaza. And the new Rotary Centennial Tower is going to be another kind of a capstone to that, I think.
So even in a paperless society, you still have a vision of a place for a library.
Absolutely. I really do. I think we'll continue to see more books go ebook, but I think there's a lot of staying power to printed books too. And I'm not just, I'm not saying that we're hanging our hat on that, but I just think the reality of the situation is there's still a lot of interest in traditional books. Another thing that you do in a library that you really can't do anywhere else now, you used to be able to do it in bookstores, but how many bookstores are around anymore? And that is what we like to call browsing. Now, it may be a function of my age, but I don't think you get the same experience clicking on icons or lists of things on your computer as you do when you physically walk through a library and you see this vast array of choices. And you can pull something off the shelf and take a quick look at it and see if that really is of any interest to you or not. It's really easy and it's fun. I think we kind of underestimate that, and we probably should be reminding people more than we do that that's an activity that you can only do in libraries and private bookstores and Barnes & Noble, because there's not many left. And no bookstore has anything like the variety we've got here. So I take something out of here every other day, and a lot of times it's from the Business, Science, and Technology department, because I like to cook. We've got an unbelievable cookbook collection, and they're always picking out, the staff, really interesting things. They put them on display, and I've discovered stuff that I never would find anywhere else, literally. I would not ever stumble on that online, period. So that's in itself, I think, a really appealing experience that we offer to people. And again, people like to be with other people. And there aren't very many places where you can just be without paying somebody something or having a specific reason for being there. It doesn't cost you anything to come to the library. You never know what you're going to find. the other day, or was it last week, we had another, the second time we had Buddhist monks doing a sand mandala in our Great Hall. Now, you happen to wander in here and that's going on, you can learn a lot. You can learn about Buddhism, you can learn what they're doing with this sand art that they do. You can stay for there was a closing ceremony with all kinds of costumes. It was just really interesting as all get out. So that's the kind of place we want to be. And we think it's going to be appealing.
Downtown, is downtown headed in the right direction? What do you think?
I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm seeing really positive signs for our downtown. I think it's generational to some extent. Younger people I talk to, they really want an active scene. You can see it in articles you read about driver's licenses kind of dropping out. Young people don't think cars are as important as my generation did. That's not to say cars are going away, but that's not as much of a fixation anymore. They want to be where other people are and there's stuff going on. They don't really care about a big house out in the suburbs or something that you got to drive to and you got your deck in the backyard. You look out the back and look at your neighbor's backyard. They want something to happen. And I think it's not just young people. I think it's people of my generation too, who are wrapping up a career, kids are grown, don't need the big house, getting sick of having 2 cars to take care of, drive around. I met a woman on our plaza the other day. One of our staff members introduced me to her. I'm 65. She said she was 68. She just moved downtown. And I think she had rented an apartment over at the Harrison. Either that or she had bought a condo at
Midtown.
Midtown. Been there a while, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But her motivation for that was, I'm sick of dealing with all this junk. I want to get rid of my stuff. I want to be able to go places without getting in a car. I want to be able to come to the library. She says, I love coming here. I want to come to the library. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to go to the park. I want to just sit out and enjoy myself. And I think there are more and more people who are going to start having those kinds of thoughts. We had a couple of false starts. Midtown was a great attempt. Didn't quite turn the tide, but now, you're seeing the difference. Harrison Squares, the Harrisons all rented out. The Anthony Wayne building, I believe those condos are sold or almost. The building down on the landing there across from Columbia Street West, which always looked to me like it ought to be turned into loft apartments, finally is getting turned into loft apartments. The new Ash Brokerage project that's been announced. People are starting to see downtown as the place to be, and I love that. To me, it's really exciting.
And it started with projects like this building.
Well, I think it did, and you've got people who don't like government, but sometimes government is in the best position to make that initial outlay, investment, take the risk that, our revenue is going to come in whether we build here or we build somewhere else. Our revenue comes from taxes. We take your money. But that really does give us the advantage of being able to take a little bit of a chance, because the revenue is going to keep coming. It's not like if we build in the wrong place, no customers are going to come and not going to buy anything and we're going to go out of business. So sometimes the government is the right player at a certain time to stick their neck out, and I think that's what we did. And I don't think there was a huge risk. We were already here. But it was a big investment to make that kind of improvement to this place. And it opened a lot of people's eyes. It brought people here who hadn't been here in years, just out of curiosity. Well, what did they spend $65 million on? Let's go see what it is. And I think almost everybody who did that was pretty impressed and pleasantly surprised with what they saw. And then the convention center, the same thing. They bring people downtown by virtue of the business that they're in. They also had that funding source available to them. They could stick their neck out a little bit and then appeal to larger conventions, and that worked. Then the next thing was the hotel that tied in with the convention center and the ballpark, and then the apartments. It doesn't happen always totally smoothly. You hit a few bumps, but it beats the heck out of just turn your back on it and say, well, I give up. So I give a lot of credit to everybody involved with that project, and to Mayor Richard, who was a big proponent of Harrison, and so it's looking good to me.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, getting hoarse. I think we covered it.
Okay. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.